I was born on a Minnesota farm, the third of three girls, to my Finnish parents. My father immigrated from Finland when he was about 17. After working in the copper mines, he enlisted, where he was a medic during the First World War and was badly gassed. Later, this affected his health a lot, and he was granted a partial pension. So this augmented the money earned from a public steam bath, sauna, my father built and we all worked at. It was a great early childhood in the small town of Monaga, Minnesota, that we moved to after the farm. And I never had to take a bath as a kid, only saunas, which I loved. I'm mentioning all this because when I was in India on one of my 3 trips there, I asked Alaba, one of Baba's close mandali, why I was drawn to Baba. He said, because of one of your parents. Why? Why? I didn't just ask which one. I was left pondering this for years. First, it was my hardworking, very moralistic yet loving Äiti, Finnish for mother. Then it was my father, Isa, who bought us a piano, paid for lessons, loved to sing and dance, and took us to the movies every Sunday afternoon. He was more the do your best, then don't worry and be happy guy. Well, only recently I came to conclude that it probably was my dad, but indirectly in that when he died, I was 17 and it enabled me to go to college with the pension money from his World War I injury, augmented by part-time work I did for the 4 years. Our family just hadn't had the financial means for my 2 older sisters to go to college. Well, a whole new world opened up at that small liberal arts Lutheran college. I had a double major in English and art. My poetry and literature classes opened that door. The art classes opened some inner doors. And the philosophy class I took made me start to ask the question, what does this existence mean? And who am I? Who am I? So after a few more years, I really decided I had to see more of the world. It was the 60s. Great upheavals were going on, and I headed to where it was most pronounced, California. There, I taught school, got married, had a child, lived in Mexico for 2 years, and then settled into a mail carrier job. Got into another 7-year relationship after my divorce, and that's when I ran into emotional problems. And a dear friend brought me The Path of Love by Meher Baba. I believed and agreed with every word of it. I already knew I was not my body, inadvertently slipping out of it for a short time once, hearing a healer make soundings after a lecture, the other time feeling I merged into the colors of the rainbow on a return hike from Upper Yosemite. There's a path with steps that are by a waterfall that has rainbows forming in the spray. But the biggest experience occurred when I made my first visit to the spiritual center here. I had come for Baba's birthday celebration in 1989, and I made friends with a little Baba gang, and we had a wonderful time, highlighted by a big snowstorm people still remember. What I remembered most was the morning visit to Baba's house when, after I left his bedroom, seated on the wooden bench in the porch, I had a very strong shock come up through my feet. I was so startled, I made my way out the door and down a side path to the left of the gate. Luckily, it was most fortunate no one was around, as the shock caused outbursts of loud crying and then laughing, and this all went on intermittently for quite a time. Besides realizing just how extremely personally Baba could make himself known, I think it was very therapeutic for a hard-headed Finn who never had time for therapy or too much work on resolving life's many muddles. It clinched Baba as my spiritual master and mentor after exploring Buddhism, Hinduism, Kundalini Yoga, and even an intensive with Baba Muktananda. I went to a few sessions at the Berkeley Psychic Institute, but intuited it was not for me, and LSD really frightened me into never trying that. In the meantime, I had joined the Meher Baba Center of Northern California, going to meetings, serving on the board a few years, and running a small bookstore. And so I was drawn to visit India in 1991. I just missed meeting Mehra, but so many of the Mandali were still there, and I quite became the Mandali groupie. Even though I didn't get there for another 9 years, I had found out that they could use stamps from the US, and then pilgrims would carry letters back and mail them from the US. Well, I sent many cards with stamps enclosed as I worked for the post office and would see all the neat new issues. And best of all, I got many thank you cards and letters back. However, one troublesome event happened when a price change happened right after a sheet of stamps had already been sent to India. I still wonder if there are priceless letters languishing in the dead letter department. It must have been the 1991 visit when I had a second electric shock. This one occurred in Mansari's little house when I was sitting in the little green chair which I later learned Baba had sat on. As I also read the Baba books and realized what a profound explanation was laid out of what emerged from that whim of God, how beautifully and naturally this life evolved, with each individual soul having the ability to experience all of it, until one is overwhelmed by the desire, grace, love, to become one with God, which, in truth, we, all of us, already are. In the meantime, I find that nature is the most soothing antidote to much that can be dismaying. The other day, I was mulling over how Jesus did much of his work by the Sea of Galilee. Buddha had his enlightenment under the Bodhi tree, and I'm collecting pictures of Baba actually in a tree or sitting under a tree, and of course, finally coming to comfort Mehra with his image on the tree after he dropped his body. Maybe that's why my only child became a wildlife biologist. I know she really loves nature. I'd like to share this quote I copied in India and later learned it was a favorite of Bill LePage. Everything that exists belongs to the Lord. Enjoy, but do not covet his property. Then only ask for 100 years of doing your duty. No other action can prevent deeds from clinging to you, proud as you are of your human existence. This is from the Upanishads. I'd like to end with, I'm convinced I'll be here for another lifetime, and on the next go-around, I'd just like to know and understand what Baba has given us just a bit sooner than my mid-40s. I know one thing that helped me get up to speed, so to speak, was the advice I got from Arnavaz, another close Mandali, to do arti every day. I really don't think I've missed it very often, even when I've almost mumbled it if I've forgotten until I was really tired. Thank you, Jai Baba.